Shake a man's hand and look him in the eye. Is that so hard to do? Don't blow smoke and don't tell lies. Son, just tell the truth. There's rumors going round all around town. You've been talking shit. I've never been a violent man. I'd rather be drinking beer. But that's the name Granddaddy gave me. And let me make it clear, you're gonna shut your mouth or say it to my face, or I'm gonna use your ass like a broom to sweep this place. Go on and call up your friends. You better bring a few. I come from a different time when the men were all old school.
Welcome to Cracker Culture, the podcast for real Floridians. As seen on TV, heard on radio, and read in many publications, we are joined by political analyst Ford O'Connell, and I'm Smokin Joe. Before we get started, let me tell you about Farmer Joe's Fresh Market. They're located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. And this week, they have on sale until the 31st of January, a dozen eggs for $3.99 while supplies last. And also, there's nothing like their artesian bacon. They have a pound of bacon, 5 different flavors, for only $7.99. So rush on out to Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, guaranteed the greatest grocery store in all of Lee County. Well, Ford, it's good to have you back, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, we've been talking about these documents found at the Biden residence at the University of Pennsylvania, and then we got documents found at former Vice President Mike Pence's home. It seems like these documents are just out there everywhere. Anybody can have classified documents nowadays. What is your take on all these that are just showing up? I mean, what did you decide one day to go look for that? How do they come up with these ideas to go look for these documents?
Well, documents are coming out of the woodwork. I think between President Trump and President Biden, everyone who's remotely connected with the White House in previous years is now looking underneath their bed, looking in their closet for documents. And, you know, I think the only problem here with Mike Pence is Joe Biden was on the run. I mean, his White House had no way to explain how documents keep being found what it seems like every 3 days that he shouldn't have. I mean, he was at a point where he was blaming Corn Pop on it. But now we find out earlier this week that Mike Pence had some as well. I think ultimately what this is going to mean, it's going to put Merrick Garland in a bind. You've basically got two folks running for president who are under special counsel. You've got a former vice president who wants to run for president, and Mike Pence, and he is basically ensnared in the same web. I think what it ultimately means is no one is going to be charged, and politically this is a huge benefit to Donald Trump. But at the same time, you can't let Joe Biden off the hook.
Well, you know, and I was going to bring that up. Donald Trump tweeted out this morning that Mike Pence was innocent. And, you know, that he's not, you know, there's no bad thing. He had no bad intentions. Mike Pence had no bad intentions. Do you not feel like that this is good for not only Donald Trump, but Joe Biden now that they've uncovered these? Does it make a little wiggle room since they uncovered them at Pence's house as well?
There's no question that the mainstream media and Democratic talkers on TV basically want to use Mike Pence in the way that they used to use Mitt Romney as a cudgel against Republicans. But I will say this, here's the difference. One thing about this is Mike Pence was talking about documents that allegedly were never unsealed and were delivered to his house, etc. With Joe Biden, we're talking about documents that he took as a senator. Okay, senators are not allowed to take classified documents home, period. Further, we don't know the scope of this because we know that there's 1,800 boxes of documents at the University of Delaware. So we don't know what we don't know when it comes to Joe Biden. He's going to try to say that there's no there, and let's move on. But the scope of Joe Biden's, documents, again, we don't know what he has. And until you do, it's hard to say it. But you also still have the double standard, where essentially Donald Trump's home is raided, and Joe Biden seems to be getting a different set of justice in terms of being able to do what he wants and slow roll the different documents out there. I think it's a double standard in how Donald Trump was treated versus Joe Biden that Republicans would be wise to stick on, because that's what a lot of Republicans feel nationwide. Is it because you have an R next to your name or because of your beliefs you're treated differently?
Well, again, it seems like that is all of a sudden we're seeing documents coming from different locations. I've asked you before, it seems like there ought to be a better accountability for these documents. I mean, how important are they if they were gone for that many years?
Well, look, media reports say some of the documents, as we've discussed in the past, covered Ukraine and Iran, and given Hunter Biden's business dealings, they seem relatively important. But again, we don't know the scope of it. And so until we know the scope of it, essentially, it's very hard to speculate. But at the same time, you need to have a better system because, to your point, documents seem to be floating all over Washington and around the states. And again, this comes back to the National Archives and the systems that we use when we move administrations in and out of the White House. But that still never explains why Joe Biden has him as a senator, because even Mitch McConnell, who many people loathe, say, I don't have any at home. And everyone in Congress says, I can't remove them from the secure facility and take them home with me. So, this is another question that Joe Biden has to answer.
Well, yeah, I think that he's got a lot of questions to answer for. One thing that's been rumored out there, and I don't know if you've got any insight on this, there's accusations that Hunter Biden actually delivered hundreds of those classified documents to UPenn for his father. Do you know anything about this?
I don't know anything about it, but I think that that's why the documents that are outstanding from Joe Biden are important, because if there's a nexus between Hunter Biden's business dealings and those documents, that is going to be a major national security risk. And remember, as we talked, Hunter Biden is not a Hunter Biden story. It's a Joe Biden story. And the question is very simple. Is Joe Biden's presidency compromised because he and his family are making money from some of America's greatest adversaries, including the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, I've tried to listen as much as I can. It's hard for me to stomach this Jean Paris when she speaks. And she was at a loss for words over this. They have tripped her up so much that she's just got to just refer to the DOJ. I mean, what is it going to take for us to get the actual truth out of this administration?
I don't know that we're ever going to get the actual truth from the Biden administration. They claim to be the most transparent administration in history, and we find out that they cover up and lie more than any administration in the modern TV era. And when it comes to Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, this is what happens when you put intersectionality and woke ideals ahead of competence. She is the worst press secretary in modern political history, at least as with regard to the television.
Yeah, I thought that little old redheaded chick was bad till she come along. She's got her beat for sure.
Are you trying to tell me that you want to circle back?
Circle back. You circle back so much I got busy. Well, and speaking of their lives, they keep on trying to tell us that our border is secure. Ray Charles can see this border ain't secure. I mean, this is a joke. Anybody that watches 5 minutes TV can see that there's hundreds and hundreds of illegals crossing daily. In Yuma, I just watched a gentleman in Yuma saying, what they don't understand is they're about to release 500 people a day, illegal immigrants, into Yuma. And he said, we don't structure for that. We don't have the means to take care of 500 additional people a day. We're going to run out of resources. When would the government do something?
Look, this is by design. In a news dump late last Friday, we found out that the number of illegal crossings in the month of December was the highest ever on record. And what's so crazy is then you also have the acting ICE director coming out and saying, what did he say? Troy Miller, the acting ICE director, came out and said the December numbers show, which, by the way, were the highest in history, show that our new border enforcement measures are working. So what's going on here? It's very simple. The Biden administration is interested in making sure people can get here as quickly as possible. They want to make sure that people are allowed to come. They have no interest whatsoever in securing the border. And further, what they do is they lie and they say, well, we need Congress to do it. I'm sorry, you don't. He has the tools at his fingertips, as President Trump showed, to secure the border. They choose not to, and it puts every one of the border states at risk, and it's putting everyone around America at risk. And unfortunately, the Biden administration doesn't care. Further, another thing we talk about is the Democrats, when it comes to migrants, have blood on their hands. Do you know that under Joe Biden, the last fiscal year, 869 or so migrants died? In the previous year, it was 600 or 700. Do you realize if that had been under Donald Trump, we would have never heard the end of it? So not only are they trying to destroy America, but they're also putting the illegal immigrants' lives at stake as well by incentivizing them to come to this country illegally and do nothing about it.
Well, the percentage of illegals coming into the country now is 171% higher than ever before. So how do we justify being able to take on these resources? Look, they've already got the checkpoints through the border areas closed where they usually check for drugs. They're not able to man those because they got to put the security out toward the border. They're not watching. The drugs are coming through freely. They're not even, the checkpoints ain't even open. The food banks are depleted. I'm crying uncle here. We need a break.
You're right. Look, this is a national security risk in ways that most people don't understand. The problem here comes when you're not watching Fox News, Fox Business, Newsmax, conservative media. The rest of the country doesn't know. The mainstream media intentionally ignores this crisis. And if they did, and if they actually focused on it and covered it, people across the country would be piping mad at exactly what's going on. But the Biden administration doesn't care. They basically want to make sure that they can just process illegals into this country as quickly as possible and as many as possible. And whatever damage it does to our country, so be it. I mean, I will tell you, this is a dereliction of duty, and this is why Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary, needs to be impeached, because the American public needs to know what's going on at its border outside of conservative media.
What about Kamala Harris? She's the border czar. Where's she at in all this?
Do you really want to ask Kamala Harris? Let's just pretend she doesn't exist. She doesn't care. She's a yes man for Biden. She believes that no one is fundamentally illegal. This is what the Democrats have been doing over the years. There is a movement to change the meaning of words. You and I are old enough to remember when there was Operation Wetback and illegal aliens, which, by the way, is a legal term, but now it's undocumented migrants. You see how the language shift has colored a lot of people's understanding of what's going on.
Well, you know, as a regular guy, and I work a lot of Hispanic people from Mexico. I have for years. And I've told you before, I'm an H-2A contractor. I bring them over here legally. They go back legally all the time, because if they don't, that's an infraction. If they get caught, they never get to come back over. The one thing that I will say in talking to every one of them about this border crisis, they lay the blame squarely at the feet of Joe Biden and said he has asked us to come.
That's exactly right. And let me say this. Most people think we're talking about Mexico, Venezuela, Cuba, Latin America. There are people from 161 different countries that have crossed that southern border since Joe Biden's been president of the United States. And let me put that in perspective. When it comes to the United Nations, There's only 192 countries in the world. So the entire world is coming to the southwest border. And unfortunately, this is a national security crisis. It puts Americans at risk. We don't even know who's going there. And then you listen to Democrats say, well, they're coming for a better life. That is not an asylum claim. Your duty is to protect American citizens and American green card holders, and that is what Joe Biden is not doing, and that's why it's a dereliction of duty.
Well, people give Ron DeSantis a bad rap about trying to stop this border crisis in the state of Florida. About 2 weeks ago, one of my employees called me. He said, you ain't gonna believe this, boss. And that's what he said. My cousins were out here fishing. It's over in West Palm. He said, there's a boat stranded here, and we found like 25 Cubans. I mean, that's commonplace in Florida. Now we're inundated with Guatemalans, people from all different countries, El Salvadorians. They're coming from all over.
That's exactly right, because they're being invited in by Biden's policies. And I tip my hat to our governor, Ron DeSantis, because he's finally said enough is enough. And he said, if Biden's not going to act, I'm going to try to use what's in my powers to deter people from coming in to Florida, particularly through South Florida. And the reason why this is important is one of Biden's, quote, solutions, which is only going to make the crisis worse, is he wants to parole what he calls paroling people from Venezuela, Cuba, etc. So he's already, through policy initiatives, inviting even more people. And because of the way immigration law works, so much power is vested into the executive branch, the presidency in this case. They can basically do whatever they want with the laws. And that is the problem right there.
Well, we're just entangled in this crazy web of confusion and corruption. But the one thing I want to also talk about, now we talking about Biden and his administration, they claimed that Donald Trump was working with the Russians, collaborating with Russians and all this. Now, the former head of counterintelligence for the FBI was indicted for doing exactly that. He was working not only with the Russian, he was working with a U.S. sanctioned Russian oligarch.
Well, that's exactly right. You're talking about former FBI member Charles McGonigal. And let's talk about why McGonigal became famous. It was McGonigal's emails on alleged Russia hoax that started the entire Crossfire hurricane investigation, which was a complete and utter farce, and none of it was true. That's what led to the Steele dossier, you name it, the Russia hoax that basically split America for 3 years because the Democrats were playing politics rather than supporting our commander-in-chief. And now what you find out, in a strange twist of irony, is that the man who basically concocted Crossfire hurricane and put us in the Russia hoax situation is actually working with the Russians as a Russian agent and was arrested over the weekend for doing just that. Talk about irony. The guy who kicked off the Russia hoax is arrested for actually being a Russian agent. I don't know if I've ever heard of a more ironic situation, but this is what goes on in the naked politicization of the FBI. They're busy looking for Reds everywhere else, and they need to be looking for Reds right underneath their own bed.
Well, and look, the greatest point of this story is Donald Trump tweeted out this morning. He put tweeting that the guy who came after me for the Russia hoax was arrested for taking money from Russia. May he rot in hell. I mean,
I'll tell you, a long time ago, Howard Kurtz and I, he does the media buzz for Fox News. He and I got into a huge argument on TV about this because he kept saying, Fox fell into this, where they were saying, gee, the Russia probe is such a big deal. And I said, it's a story, but it's not the story you claim. And when you do that, you're playing politics, whether or not you recognize it, because you have no proof about this. All you're talking about is innuendo on innuendo. And when you do that, you're not using journalism. You're hurting America. And my gosh, you should have seen the flare up between he and I. And I think that Howie Kurtz is a good man, but it just shows the depth of how the Russia hoax even got into conservative media.
Well, I'd be interested to see who else gets indicted with all this coming out. I want to skip on and talk to you about this weekend. We've got a vote for the RNC. Now, we just had a lot of the Florida Republican organizations tried to make sure that Ronna McDaniel didn't get it. And Trump come out and endorsed not Harmony, not Ronna. Some people thought he was going to endorse Mike Lindell, but he didn't. He endorsed North Carolina Republican Party Chair Michael Whatley. What can you tell us about Michael Whatley? Is that the right choice? I mean, will he do a better? Look, I don't want Ronna. I mean, will he do a better job than Harmony or Mike Lindell, in your opinion?
Well, here's the deal. I think you're absolutely right about Ronna McDaniel, because here's the problem. If you say stay the course for a fourth term, you're basically saying let's try to do the same thing again and again. And here's the truth about 2024. Regardless of whether our nominee for president is Donald Trump or our governor, Ron DeSantis, if we don't find a way to win Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, Joe Biden or whoever else on the Democratic side is going to become the president again. So we have to have a whole new way of thinking. And all I can tell you right now is that I don't think that McDaniel is the person to do it. That said, this weekend we're going to take that vote and we're going to find out whether or not she gets a fourth term. And right now, there's a lot of uncertainty I'm hearing from my sources in the room out in California where they're going to make these decisions.
But what about this Whatley guy? What can you tell us? Look, I'm not real familiar with him.
I am not either. I mean, North Carolina has been doing a very good job. This is one of the next states that's sort of on the chopping block where Democrats have been making inroads, and the North Carolina Republican Party has been successfully defending that state very well in federal elections. It is more like Georgia in terms of the urban-rural breakdown and the different demographics. What's going on in North Carolina, to my point, is more like what's going on in Arizona and in Georgia from a tactical standpoint. And the fact that Republicans keep prevailing, except for the governor, the Republicans keep prevailing is a good sign. But again, I'm more in the camp right now of understanding what it is we have to do in 2024, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, winning those states, and basically saying having the same person doing it again is not such a great idea.
Well, and again, like I said, I'm not real familiar with Whatley, and I know that North Carolina is kind of on the fence of being red, but there is a lot of blue areas in North Carolina. Matter of fact, in my opinion, the main spot in North Carolina is Charlotte, North Carolina, and that right there is very blue.
Well, to your point, Joe, I went to school in North Carolina. I've actually worked on political campaigns in and around North Carolina. You're absolutely right. Where Republicans are in trouble is in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and also in Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. Those are the two areas. Those two urban areas, the bigger they get, the bigger the problems Republicans will have, because those two urban areas alone constitute 42% of the votes in the state of North Carolina. And therefore, if we don't find a way to crack Charlotte and Raleigh-Durham, we're going to be in real trouble in the future in the Tar Heel state.
Well, we'll go back. You were talking earlier about whoever's going to be the next political candidate for president. Now, I was looking through the polls, and there's an uptick in support for former President Donald Trump. Some even showing double-digit leads over Governor DeSantis.
Well, this is great. Let me tell you something. Politically, we talk about the Biden document dump. The Biden document dump for President Trump has been political gold. And I keep telling people that he's almost the political equivalent of Lazarus. Just when you think he's politically dead, he finds a way to keep fighting back. And that's exactly right. The latest polling shows Trump beating Biden by 3 points nationally, and it shows him now ahead of Ron DeSantis in a Republican presidential primary, 55-29. Now, I think those numbers are going to continually change. But what you're seeing with President Trump at this stage, and we're a ways off, is that non-college educated Republican primary voters are consolidating around Trump because He's been putting out policies, and what you find out is that once again, the Mar-a-Lago raid is starting to resemble very similar to the Russia hoax in terms of the implications. So it's a pox on both people's houses. Now tell us who's going to improve our lives more come 2024. And right now you're watching President Trump rebound.
I love Ron DeSantis. I love Donald Trump. I'd be happy with either one of them as president. But what I will say is most Floridians don't want to lose DeSantis yet. We want him to stick around and finish out his term. If he is to go ahead and proceed and become president, I don't think that we'll be unhappy with it. However, there needs to be a place. We need the people that support Donald Trump. It can't be an either or. We're going to have to come together as a party here.
Look, I agree with you, and there are many Floridians, including my mother, that make that point and say, I don't want Ron DeSantis to leave the state of Florida. He may be a great president, should he become president, but frankly, what he's done in Florida, this is the heyday of Florida. I often say it, and that is truly attributable to Ron DeSantis' leadership and making tough decisions in uncertain times. And that's the true definition of a leader. At the same time, though, there's a lot of people that say, hey, this is Donald Trump's, game to finish. And essentially what Donald Trump, people forget this because he got a lot of criticism in the media. One of the greatest things that Donald Trump did, most underappreciated, was his foreign policy. What we're seeing with holding NATO's feet to the fire. Remember, Remain in Mexico, that wasn't passed by Congress. That was done through foreign diplomacy. So Donald Trump understood the New World Order. And unlike many people in Washington, he understands that the greatest threat to America in the 21st century is the Chinese Communist Party. Something that the only governor in America that seems to understand is Ron DeSantis. So, look, I think it's great. Between the two, we've got a great bench. Let's try to find a way to win the White House for 12 years with both of them.
Well, Ron DeSantis has made remarkable strides to getting this state to be in America first and getting us under the policies that the Floridians want. He's fought against boys and girls bathroom. He's fought against boys on women's sports. He's took a new charge against CRT. And I want to play a little clip from your favorite person here. Let's see this.
I'm going to try and go around here. Joey, I haven't gone.
Yeah, thank you. What was the White House's reaction to Governor Ron DeSantis' education department blocking the teaching of AP African American Studies, saying it violates Florida's new state law and, quote, significantly lacks educational value? Does the White House have concerns about this action by the DeSantis administration?
So first, I want to be very clear. The administration does not dictate any curriculum for local schools. That is not something that we do here. But there is something that we do want to comment. It is incomprehensible that to see that this is what this ban or this block, to be more specific, that DeSantis has put forward. If you think about the study of Black Americans, that is what he wants to block. And again, these types of actions aren't new. They are not new from what we're seeing, especially from Florida, sadly. Florida currently bans teachers from talking about who they are and who they love, as we've talked about many times here in this briefing room. They have banned more books in schools and libraries than almost every other state in the country. And let's not forget, they didn't block, be more clear, I want to make sure I'm using the right word here, they didn't block AP European history, they didn't block our music history, they didn't block our art history, but the state chooses to block a course that is meant for high-achieving high school students to learn about their history of arts and culture. And it is incomprehensible again. And I will just leave it there. Leave it there to make your own determination of why this occurred and why this happened. Again, it is not our place to direct or to be involved in any local school curriculum, but this is concerning.
Well, Ford, Ron's not against black education. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Well, she says a lot of stupid stuff. But what Ron said is that what they put forward has no educational value.
She's lying through her teeth. And let me walk you through the same type of con that they're trying to perpetuate from the bully pulpit there in the White House. Remember the Don't Say Gay bill? It never said anything about don't say gay. And this is the same thing here. They are bastardizing the Stop Woke Act, which stipulates that the history of African peoples, the Middle Passage, the experience of slavery, abolition, and the effects of segregation and other forms of discrimination, as well as slavery, the experience of slavery, should be taught in Florida schools. Here's what that they don't like is that Ron DeSantis and others in Florida are putting their foot forward and saying that this isn't about blocking Black history or erasing the country's sins, but drawing a line in the sand saying that you're not going to start using this AP College Board pilot program to teach one-sided history in the way that you want from the woke agenda crib sheet to indoctrinate our children. If you want to teach that stuff, you teach it in college, but you're not going to teach it in Florida's public schools. And frankly, I got to tip my hat to them. I'm going to tell you something else. Every other governor should pay attention to the way that they're trying to crucify Ron DeSantis and how factually Ron DeSantis is on rock solid ground.
Well, you never would have heard nothing about this if it wasn't for this woke agenda. This woke agenda is really, as Donald Trump said, is turning everything to shit. And that's the truth. I mean, you go woke and you go stupid, it seems like.
Look, I've been warning about this for I don't know how many years with Trey Radel on the radio, and people look at me like I've got a horn coming out of my head. And I'll tell you, I've also been a college professor. I know exactly what goes on in the devil's den of academia and how they basically want to push the Marxist agenda down to toddlers. And if you understand nothing else but understand that they want to take the Marxist agenda and push it to toddlers, then you'll understand how they're going to take over America. They want to brainwash you into believing that their bastardized version of values, rewriting history, the changing meaning of words is the right way and the only way. And that is unfortunate, and it's destroying this country faster than the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, as we proceed to talk about this CRT and Ron DeSantis, I want to come on down to Lee County. There's a couple things going on right now. We're looking to buy some social studies books. Packed full, not all of them, but a lot of them is packed full of this crap.
Yes, and it has been for years, and that is what you have to pay attention to. And what happens is school boards across this country, not just in Lee County, are told, oh, these books will work. The school board members don't read them. They're not really well analyzed. And you realize quickly what it is they're trying to do. And it sounds like such a little thing. But you and I both know that if you throw a little stone into Okeechobee after a while, that little ripple can become a wave. And that's what you have to keep your eyes on.
Well, the problem we have in Lee County is our board. And before we get started, I appeared last night. I was asked to speak. There was a lot of media coverage, and I might have got a little vocal, but I was going to play a clip. Now, folks, bear with me. It's about 6 minutes, but I think you'll enjoy some of the points we brought out here. Or bear with me. My name's Smokin Joe. We're not here today because of the actions of this board. Sadly enough, we're here because of the persistence of the people of this community. They persisted in pursuing a cancer that y'all have had on this board for years. And as a new board, I think y'all want to start it clean. Start off fresh. You know, the sad thing is we've had ongoing issues with one board member, from inappropriate comments about Guatemalan students to accusations of shady dealings with vendors. This district has let this be a plague for years. It's time that somebody stands up and do something. The proper thing would be for this board member to resign, which I find highly unlikely, for it seems her morals or lack of justifies her actions. You people need to find it in your heart to know what's right for this community. This is not right. You know, if we had a student that was going to be suspended for something, we're not going to workshop it. The time for talking's done. The workshopping, you can't workshop this out of existence. Thank God for Peter Fleischer and the other media that's covering this finally.
As a member of this community, I am imploring this new board to do the right thing, regardless of what you think of me or what I think of y'all. This is the right thing, and today's the day for somebody to send this to the governor. This is no longer in y'all's control. I was appalled at one member of the board for attacking a member for posting something on social media. That's not your job, and you don't have the authority to attack members of the public. Your job is to serve this community, and you're not doing a very good job if you're attacking these people. Now, that was a very dereliction of duty, removing that woman for speaking the truth. Whether you want to be attacked or not, you're a public official. The truth and transparency. Why will this board not get it down? Go ahead, come on, let's get a forensic audit. I've been begging for years. Y'all all know this. Get a forensic audit. Show the people that you're trying to do something for the community and not for yourself. This is not a self-serving position. This is for the community. Please resign. Do the world a favor. You have plagued this district for years. I'm Smokin Joe. Peace out.
If this is concerning to what I think it is, on the next motion. Well spoken, Joe. Thank you. I apologize.
So just to be clear for the public,
Can I make one point of order? There's at least 3 attorneys on this board, correct? At least 3. Sam, you're an attorney. How did y'all not see that civil rights violation where he just tried to silence a community member? We've been entangled in lawsuits because of Patricia, yet you got a chair that's just done the same thing. And now we don't understand what you're even voting on. There's only one solution, and that's to turn this matter over to our governor. Again, I'm Smokin Joe. Kathleen Morgan just said that she wasn't real happy with the investigators or who was investigating. We, the public, have been saying that about you board members for years, Kathleen. We ain't happy with who investigates y'all because y'all self-investigate. Get an outside investigator. I'll be happy with it. As a matter of fact, get the governor's office like we've been asking for. You've got one choice here. This is not a workshop thing, Armour, and I'm glad they're all working professionally with you, and hopefully keep your blood pressure down a little bit. You're awful red there. But this is not a workshop thing. You've got to stand up for the community. And regardless, nothing bad to say about but one member, I want you to do the right thing and vote for what the public has asked for. This is not because of your actions. Y'all have not acted on this properly. This is because of the persistence of advocates and parents that were here today. I've got better things to do. I've got one thing in this fight, and that's a 4-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter. That's it. That's the only reason I come up here. I ain't looking to get public office. I ain't looking to be a vendor for no reason. Smokin Joe, and yes, as I was scoffed as a couple of us stood up by some of the board members, that goes back. Armour wants to hear stuff. He wants to hear from the people. He don't want to hear from us. He don't want to hear from the tax-paying citizens with children in the district. He wants to hear from some of you guys. Now, first off, doesn't the board, the district, have a zero tolerance policy for bullying in this area? Ain't that what then why are we even discussing this? Zero tolerance is not just for our children. Zero tolerance is for you and her and the rest of you. So when are we going to stand up and do the right thing? Look, you've already violated one person's civil rights tonight by doing exactly what you said you wanted people to do, is come up and speak. You let another member, because they were speaking on behalf of Miss Patricia, use curse words. If I'd have said anything like that, you would have threw me out just like you did Miss Perez. There's a double standard here, and you are not entitled. You have no, and as another thing, as far as privacy, as documents, the privacy is on you. If we find it, we're going to expose it. And trust me, we've got boxes full of it. The rest of you need to take a serious look at yourself. If you let this go on, we're not going to stop coming. This is important to me. This is important to my community. This is important to the hundreds of people, and I'm seriously hundreds of people that call me and email me every week about what we're going to do about this board. You don't have a lot of the public's, they don't think that you're going to be able to handle this. I seriously think that y'all are making a mistake by not going ahead. There shouldn't even be discussion. We should end this right now. Turn this over to somebody who will investigate it properly. And why do you not want that? Why? Give me one reason, the reason why we don't want the governor to look into this board. Is it because of certain consultant firms put you all on the board? Maybe that's the reason. You need to do what is right for our community, not yourselves, not for no consultants. That needs to be gone. That needs to be dealt with today. And as a board, you have a power to have the community stand up for a decision you make. Make the right decision. I know y'all gonna love me tonight, but I didn't have nothing to say till we got to the speak up, listening up. There's a lot of people watching, and I've got 4 messages since you said that. And you know what they said? They said, what constitutes bullying? What constitutes bullying in this district? Does the fact that a certain board member's been visiting schools and trying to encourage, intimidate principals about who to vote for, the elected superintendent? I just got a message from 2 principals saying that Sam Fisher is doing exactly that. Now, how can we trust the board to do what's right and enforce a speak up, listen up, when you're not listening to us? We've told you to get rid of the problem, and we got more problems coming up. I'm speaking up. It's time for somebody to listen up.
Well, that was last night's school board meeting, and you can see I was in rare form. But the truth is, that board had nobody in the public knew what they were doing. I mean, nobody. They confused everybody. I don't think the board knew what they were doing.
Well, I think that in your montage you made a great point. New faces, more problems, same cabal. And essentially, this is not going to change until you bring in an outside group that lays down the law, because unless it's a certain handful of parents and people like yourself, you got to constantly hold their feet to the fire. A lot of these folks made campaign promises, especially the 3 new board members, that they would be different. And they're not any more different. They're just exacerbating the same problem. So I think you're right. You're going to need to get the governor's office or somebody else that can be agreed upon as a neutral arbiter here to actually look into this board and the cronyism that's going on. And when you talk about a new superintendent, it's not just bullying. This is rigging a process that is supposed to be held accountable. And I'm not sure which violation of Florida code it is, but I promise you it's one, particularly if you have those text messages and those meeting notes about members on the board doing just that. There's a difference between politicking and strong arming, and you cannot be strong arming on behalf of the Terry Miller clique.
Well, and what I was talking about, there was a motion to proceed on an investigative report yesterday. There was 2 of them. One was from December and one was from January. The one from December had to do with a lawsuit going on currently between Oaks Farms, a former vendor, and the Lee County School Board, who wrongfully terminated this company's contract. So what the chair, Armor Persons, did was try to put these 2 together, and nobody knew what was going on. They couldn't discuss it. How is it legal for them to bring it up in public comment if they can't discuss with the people what we're going to comment on?
Well, that's a procedural sleight of hand. Obviously, Armor didn't just come up with that on his own. Again, this is what I mean. You need an outside arbiter to really watch over these people who are allegedly watching over our children. It's absolute insanity. I don't know how he can do that. But again, the procedural rules may be such that he can. You have to look at the different rules. But again, it needs to be fleshed out and looked at in terms of something that smells fishy.
Well, and again, I don't know that it's true. I've been told that this slate, the 3 new members, have made an agreement with Chris Patrica not to enact on her corruptness. If that's true, we've got way worse problems than we had before.
This is political cronyism. If those allegations are true, this is political cronyism at its finest and at its worst. And everyone on that board ran against that type of cronyism. And what are we? Couple weeks in and a month in, and what do? Same darn thing.
Well, you had two former school board members speak last night, Betsy Bond, Democrat, liberal, and Gwen Gittens, Democrat. Both of them spoke, and I can't say I didn't agree with most of what both of them said when they come up and approached the board. And one thing that Betsy Bond pointed out was the election for the chair and the superintendent. She made a comment that it was out there before the vote ever went down. It was, because I put it out there. I announced it at Seed the Table. I put it on the social media 4 days before the vote even happened. How did I know this? A political consulting firm is controlling this board. They're controlling what we are going to get as far as the superintendent. They're controlling every aspect of this board, and they think that the Floridians are too stupid to see what they're doing. We are controlled by a consulting firm right now in Southwest Florida.
And look, and this consulting firm is basically betting that there are not going to be enough parents like yourself. They're going to stand up and continue to fight, and eventually people are going to roll over and they're going to try to wait you out. You can't let that happen.
But that's the problem.
That's the call to action right there.
That's the problem. Grassroots candidates or any grassroots patriots can't compete with the money. The money is killing everybody, and the cabal, they've grouped together and they have all these investors. And I mean, look, I could go back. I've told you before, I've got all of the list of contributions, and it's ungodly. Where does that money go if they don't spend on elections? What happens to that excess money?
I think you raise a lot of very valuable questions again, but people don't know. The wider audience doesn't know about this.
Well, I think that somebody needs a call to action to look into all these political action committees. I think that part of the problem in local government is these political action committees, and how you get support for those political action committees. You got to be beholden to them for something, and everybody on that board currently is beholden to TM Consulting. When I say everybody, maybe not Kathleen Morgan, but I think Debbie Jordan's involved. How did she win? She didn't even hardly campaign, and she won her election.
Well, I think that's the point. I also think that there's a fear out there among candidates in Lee County that if they don't go with TM or agree with the clique or the powers that be of the establishment, that they then can't win. And I think that fear is what's bringing people. And that's why I tell you, don't let them dictate to you who's running in these races. Get as many candidates as you can in there, because the more candidates in these races, the better chance you have of defeating TM Consulting. Don't let it be one-on-one. Don't let them scare you out of your civic duty if you believe you have what it takes to improve the Lee County schools. But people get scared. They're told to wait their time. They're told, well, there'll be another. No. You do what you think is right, and if enough people have enough courage to do it, you'll drive TM Consultancy out of Lee County.
And that's what we've got to have happen. People have got to realize what's really going on, how much of our tax money is actually wasted, and I mean wasted. I mean, I can show you scraps of metal that sat out there at the school board rusted for years. They don't care. It's not their money.
Well, that's exactly the problem. And you and I have discussed this many times. You're talking about a budget of $2 billion. And not only the waste, fraud, and abuse, but then you've got the vendor cronyism. And I think that Lee County people, particularly in certain parts of Lee County that have not only been hard hit by the hurricane, but also hard hit by the recession, would want to know where their money's going when it comes to the next generation. But unfortunately, there seems to be an entire media blackout on it.
Well, look, the current school board, with the lawsuits that's going on with the current school, they're creating generational wealth for the people that's suing them, because they're going to lose these cases.
Yeah, look, I hear you. The law, the cronyism within the law and other things, that's another point for a different day. But I think you're absolutely right. But what the problem here is still the same. who gets hurt by all this shenanigans and potential illegal activity. The children of Lee County. And you and I have discussed it many times, whether it's Lee, it's Collier, etc. Southwest Florida only goes as far as the next generation. And right now, South Florida in general is the envy of the nation. This is supposed to be our heyday, and this crap's going on.
Well, Ford, I want to wrap it up like usual. I look forward to our conversations. I feel like I get a moment of sanity when me and you talk. I mean, it's a little tough in other spots, if you know what I mean.
Hey, I always enjoy our conversations. I'll just tell you right now, I'm going to be back in the media later this week, and I am not taking my foot off of Joe Biden, because I'm going to tell you something. That's what the Democrats do. This is what we talk about, TM consultancy. They act a lot like Democrats in the exact same tactics. Don't let them get away with it. When you've got them dead to right, make sure that they're held accountable. And Joe Biden has to be held accountable, because the Democrats will continue the same tricks that harm average Americans and Main Street Floridians if you don't hold them accountable right now. And essentially, we've got a great bench to take them on in 2024, but that doesn't start 3 weeks from the 2024 election. That starts right now.
Well, Ford, again, I appreciate our time together. Folks, you can make a difference in your local politics. You need to get out there and try. Don't think your vote or your voice doesn't matter. We are not trying to be the voice for nobody else. We're simply trying to help you to find your own voice. For the Cracker Culture Podcast for real Floridians, we love you, Florida. Love, peace, and Gator Grease.